They say blood is thicker than water, but no one tells you what to do when your own blood turns into poison. I never expected my little sister, the one whose dreams I paid for, whose mistakes I covered, whose future I silently built, to accuse me of something so cruel. Stealing our grandfather's will. She said it so easily, like she truly believed it, or maybe just wanted everyone else to believe it. My mother backed her up, without a second thought. And my father? He didn't even ask for the truth. He kicked me out of the house that very night. No bags. No goodbye. Just betrayal. They had no idea I was the reason the lights stayed on in that house. Or that Rachel's fancy college education was being paid for by the very person they just threw away. But that's the thing about truth. It may stay quiet for a while, but when it speaks, it's louder than every lie ever told. This is the story of how I lost everything and how I took it all back. My name is Emily, and I'm 27 years old. I've always been the quiet one in the family, the one who stays out of drama, keeps her head down, and works hard. I live with my parents and my younger sister Rachel. She's 22, beautiful, popular, and the kind of person everyone listens to, even when she's wrong. After I graduated from college, I started working 2 jobs. One was full-time at a local bookstore, and the other was part-time at a coffee shop. I didn't mind the work. I actually liked staying busy. What no one knew, not even Rachel, was that I had been paying for her college tuition for the past 2 years. Mom and Dad were struggling financially, and Rachel's school was expensive. I wanted to help because I knew how badly she wanted that degree. Rachel always acted like the world revolved around her, but I still supported her in silence. I never asked for thanks. I never told anyone. I figured one day she'd appreciate it. I was wrong. Everything changed after Grandpa passed away. He was the only person in the family who truly believed in me. Before he died, he told me he was going to make sure I was taken care of. I didn't think much of it at the time. I just missed him. 1 week after the funeral, the chaos started. Rachel came storming into the kitchen, screaming that I had stolen the will. I was shocked. I had no idea what she was talking about. Mom stood behind her, arms crossed, nodding like she believed every word. Dad didn't even ask me for my side. He yelled at me, called me ungrateful, and told me to get out of his house. And just like that, I was homeless. I walked out of the house with nothing but my purse and the clothes on my back. I didn't cry. Not at first. I was too stunned. My own family had thrown me out like I meant nothing to them. It was late evening, and I had nowhere to go. I sat at a bus stop and stared into the distance, thinking about how quickly everything had fallen apart. My phone buzzed, a message from my coworker, Tasha, asking if I'd be in for the morning shift. I stared at her name for a second, and then I called her. "Emily? Is everything okay?" she asked the moment she picked up. I hesitated, then whispered, "Tasha, can I crash at your place tonight? Just for a few days. I'll explain everything." She didn't ask any questions. "Of course. Come over now." That night, I slept on her couch, my heart breaking all over again. I wasn't even angry yet, just confused and hurt. How could Rachel lie like that? How could my parents believe her without a single question? The next morning, while sipping cheap instant coffee, I made a decision. I was done helping people who didn't care about me. I opened my banking app and canceled the automatic payment for Rachel's college tuition. It had been going out of my account every month like clockwork, over $2,000 a month, covering everything. Books, housing, classes, everything. I also called the electric company and ended the account under my name. Same with the water and gas. My parents never knew the bills were being paid by me. They just thought things magically stayed on even when they were short on money. Let them find out the hard way. Still, as I hit confirm, on the last cancellation, a strange mix of guilt and relief rushed over me. I had spent years giving to a family who never appreciated it. Maybe now, they'd realize just how much I did for them. But at that moment, none of them had any idea. And I was finally done being their silent helper. 3 days passed. I kept going to work, kept my head down, and said nothing to my parents or Rachel. I didn't block them, I just waited. I knew the silence would speak louder than any words I could say. On the fourth day, it began. Around noon, I got a frantic text from Mom. Emily, did you forget to pay the power bill? The electricity is out. I didn't reply. An hour later, another message from Dad. What's going on with the water? There's no running water in the house. Still, I said nothing. Then came the message that made me smirk for the first time in days, Rachel. Why did you stop paying for my college? I got a warning letter. I could get suspended. There it was. The truth was cracking through. I sat back in my chair at work, took a sip of my iced coffee, and thought to myself, you accused me of stealing a will, and now you're losing everything I paid for. Later that night, Tasha and I were watching TV when she turned to me and asked, you okay? I nodded slowly. Yeah, just waiting for the rest of it to fall apart. Sure enough, the next day Rachel called me. Not texted, but called. 3 times. I didn't pick up. Then, my dad showed up at my job. I saw him through the bookstore window, pacing back and forth outside like a man about to explode. My heart started racing. I stepped outside, unsure what to expect. Emily, he said, voice tight. Why didn't you tell us you were paying all the bills? And Rachel's tuition. I just stared at him. You never ask. He looked stunned. But why would you do all that and not say anything? I shrugged. Because I loved my family, even when they didn't love me back. He opened his mouth to speak, but had no words. His eyes dropped to the ground. Then he said it quietly. We made a mistake. But it was too late. They were about to learn that their biggest mistake wasn't just kicking me out. It was turning their backs on the only person who actually held everything together. A week later, just when I thought things couldn't get any more twisted, I got a call from Mr. Bennett, my grandfather's lawyer. Emily, he said, I wanted to speak to you privately. Something came up regarding your grandfather's will. My heart dropped. What now? Rachel already accused me of stealing it. That's exactly why I'm calling, he said calmly. Rachel's claim didn't make sense to us. So, we went back into our firm's archives and found something unexpected. Your grandfather left a sealed backup copy of the will with us, separate from the one that went missing. My mouth went dry. And that version of the will clearly states that you are the primary beneficiary. 80% of his estate is to go to you, including the family house. I froze. You're kidding. I'm not. Rachel was supposed to receive 10%. The remaining 10 was meant for a charity your grandfather supported. I've scheduled a formal reading for next week, and I suggest you attend, with legal representation. I hung up the phone and just sat there in silence. So, that's why Rachel made up the lie. That's why she pointed fingers so fast. She knew the truth, and she wanted to steal what wasn't hers. But now the truth had found its way back, and it was about to hit them like a brick wall. I immediately contacted a lawyer. Not just for the will, but to file a defamation suit. Rachel and my mother had dragged my name through the mud, lied about me in front of the family, and kicked me out of my own home. I was going to make sure they paid for it legally. This wasn't about revenge. This was about standing up for myself for the first time in years. And it was only the beginning. The courtroom smelled like old paper and cold justice. I sat on the left side, wearing a navy blue blazer I had borrowed from Tasha. My lawyer, Mr. Clayton, stood beside me, calm and prepared. Across the aisle sat Rachel, pale, fidgeting, with my mother beside her. Dad wasn't there. I had a feeling he didn't want to choose a side this time. The judge called the room to order. First, the lawyer from my grandfather's firm presented the sealed backup copy of the will. He explained its legitimacy, how it had been stored in a locked vault, and how it clearly listed me as the primary heir to the estate. Rachel's face turned red. My mother looked confused and embarrassed. But it got worse. My lawyer stood and began presenting evidence of slander and defamation. He showed text messages Rachel sent to extended family, accusing me of stealing. Then he displayed proof of my tuition payments, utility bills, and a letter from Rachel's university confirming that I was the only person who had ever made payments toward her education. She not only lied, Mr. Clayton said, But she did it while benefiting from the very person she was accusing. Then came the final blow, a handwriting expert's report. It revealed that the fake will Rachel submitted earlier was forged, and worse, the handwriting matched hers. The judge leaned forward. Rachel Thompson, based on this evidence, you are now being referred for criminal investigation on charges of forgery and fraud. You will also pay restitution to Ms. Emily Thompson and relinquish all claims to the estate. Rachel burst into tears. My mother stood up yelling, "No, this is a mistake. Rachel didn't mean any harm." The judge slammed his gavel. "Ma'am, sit down. This isn't a family argument, it's a courtroom." I stayed silent through it all, because for once I didn't need to speak. The truth had already done it for me. After court ended, I walked out of the courthouse into the sharp afternoon sun. My lawyer gave me a firm handshake and said, "You did well. It's over now, at least the legal part." But it didn't feel like it was over. Not yet. As I walked toward the parking lot, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned and saw my father jogging after me. "Emily, wait," he called, breathless. I stood still, arms crossed. "What is it?" He looked older than I remembered, like the last few weeks had aged him 10 years. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I should have listened to you. I should have defended you." I raised an eyebrow. "But you didn't." He swallowed hard. I was angry, confused, but now I see how badly we messed up. "Your mother." I cut him off. "Don't blame Mom. You kicked me out just as fast. You called me a liar without a second thought. You trusted Rachel's word over mine, after everything I've done for this family." He hung his head. "I know. I was wrong." There was a long pause. Finally, I said, "I'm not looking for an apology. I'm looking for peace. That doesn't include going back to a family that only values me when I'm useful." I turned and walked away before he could say another word. That evening, I sat in my new apartment, small but cozy, and stared at the property papers in my hand. The house I grew up in was now mine. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I didn't want it anymore. I called a real estate agent and made arrangements to sell it. I used the money to buy my own place and invest in a lifelong dream I'd pushed aside for too long, opening a cozy neighborhood cafe with a small bookstore inside. A place where people like me, who had been thrown away by those they loved most, could find warmth, coffee, and maybe a little hope. For the first time in my life, I was building something just for me. And I didn't owe anyone an explanation. Weeks passed. The sun seemed warmer, my mornings quieter, and life, finally, felt mine. The cafe's renovation was going well. I had hired a couple of local artists to paint murals on the walls. Tasha helped me pick out books for the shelves. Everything felt like a fresh start. Then one afternoon, while organizing a shipment of coffee supplies, Tasha walked in holding her phone. "Emily, you need to see this." She handed it to me, and I stared at the screen. It was a screenshot of a local news article. "Former university student arrested for will forgery, faces jail time." Under the headline was a photo of Rachel, tear-streaked and hiding her face as she was escorted out of the courthouse. My heart didn't race. My stomach didn't drop. I just blinked and handed the phone back. Guess she thought she could get away with it. "She's going to serve time?" Tasha asked. I nodded. She forged a legal document and tried to destroy someone's life. That's not a slap-on-the-wrist crime. Rachel was sentenced to 8 months in county jail with a probation period after release. Her college refused to re-enroll her. Her academic record was permanently flagged for fraud. And because she had no job experience, having always depended on others, she ended up working part-time at a gas station on the outskirts of town after her release. Word got around. People whispered. Former friends distanced themselves. Even Mom, who once praised Rachel for being the pride of the family, quietly stopped mentioning her in conversations. I didn't gloat. I didn't post about it or rub it in. But I did feel something close to closure. For the first time, Rachel was facing real consequences. And I was finally free. 6 months later, the grand opening sign finally went up. Evelyn's Corner, named after my grandmother, The only person besides Grandpa who ever told me I was destined for more. The cafe smelled like cinnamon rolls, fresh coffee, and hope. Shelves lined with hand-picked books surrounded the cozy reading nooks. I had saved the window seat for myself, my little sanctuary. On the first day, we had a full crowd. Friends from work, kind neighbors, even a few strangers who said they heard about the place from someone who knew someone. It made me smile. Business wasn't the only thing that bloomed. Emotionally, I had started to heal. I went to therapy. I learned to set boundaries. I no longer apologized for doing what was best for me. One crisp autumn morning, as I refilled sugar jars behind the counter, I noticed a familiar face walk in.
Dad.
He looked hesitant, holding a small gift bag. I sighed quietly, but approached him anyway. "I'm not here to reopen old wounds," he said softly. "Just to say I'm proud of you." I nodded but said nothing. He placed the gift on the counter and left. Inside the bag was a simple photo frame with a picture of me and Grandpa, the last one we ever took together. There were no words, just a quiet message. "I see you now." I didn't forgive everything.
Some scars stay.
But I also didn't feel hate. Just distance and peace. Because now, I finally had something that no one in my family could ever take away from me. A life I built with my own two hands. And for the first time in years, I was happy. Sometimes, the people we sacrifice the most for are the first to turn against us. But when truth stands tall, lies fall on their own. I didn't need revenge. I needed peace. And I found it not in their apologies, but in the life I built without them. If my story touched you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more true stories of strength, betrayal, and powerful comebacks. Thank you for watching.